Oh, yeah, thank you for being part of all this. I hope you've enjoyed this series on the nail and looking at the death of Jesus and what it does for us. And so I wanted to sum that up by looking at our salvation in three tenses, what Jesus has done for us on the cross, and how we have entered into that life, and all the stuff that happened to us when we became a Christian, when we started to follow Jesus, when we said yes to God, when we were filled with the Holy Spirit, when we opened the door to Jesus, whatever phrase you want to use, when we identified with Christ, we identified with his death. And Paul says in Romans chapter 6, you might want to have that open. It's a brilliant chapter where he talks about we died to sin at that point. That as well as talking about all the stuff that happened around our conversion, we can talk about what God did in us to purify us, to make us more like Jesus, to give us his peace and joy, to help us to walk with justice and righteousness, and how we can have the life of God in us, and what that looked like for us on day one, and also what it looks like now, because not only have we have been crucified with Christ, that old sin has been done, old life has been done away with, that the body of sin has been done away with. We're no longer slaves to sin, but we live in that constant counting ourselves dead to sin and alive to God. That's verse 11. Our baptism signifies what has happened, but our ongoing commitment to live righteously is a way that we become more like Jesus. And so that's we are being saved. And then there's also that we will be saved, that there will become a day when this failing life is transformed into his glorious life. And it would be good to see something of our perspective on that. It looks from Romans 6 that our perspective now is to be looking forward more than back. We look back to the cross, but not. We're looking forward to the resurrection life that we have, and we're living in that now. And so we're counting ourselves alive to God now. Have a good time as you talk about this stuff. I think it could be really valuable, and a really good evening if you're open enough to talk about what God is doing in your lives now, if you're open enough to share some stories about how God has moved, and if you're open enough to talk about the hopes and expectation you have for God to continue to work on you as you become more and more conformed to the image of Christ. Have a great time as you talk about it. I'll see you in a bit. Bye-bye.